They don't even know how many planets are in our solar system. They tell us 9, but there's actually 40 total. Every one of those 39 planets have different civilizations. Saturn is probably one of the most important planets in our solar system. And Lou Baldwin, who I talk to all the time, who's written the books about space and UFOs, he said that if you were to look at the surface of Saturn, all you have to do is to look at it for 5 seconds and you would faint for about a day. They have tried to make us think, oh, it's way too hot for anybody to live on Venus, which is nonsense. There's a civilization up on Venus. There's several on Mars. All of them have. Uranus has civilizations.
We're here with John Lear, and today we're going to be talking about mysteries of our solar system. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Emery. Nice to be here.
Let's talk about the planets of our solar system.
Okay, well, NASA loves to limit the information they give us, and they don't even know how many planets are in our solar system. They tell us 9, but there's actually 40 total. So there's 39 planets in addition to Earth. Now, can we see them all? No. NASA can see a few of them, but not all of them. As a matter of fact, they can't see most of them. ET uses a technology, and I don't know how it works, but it works pretty good.
And does NASA have any, have they observed anything of these planets?
They can see a few of the 39 other planets that exist, but they're not telling us.
Right.
Every one of those 39 planets have different civilizations. They trade with one another. They trade technology. They trade farming. There's a massive amount of air traffic control between them. So much is going on. We're regarded as the solar system morons. As a matter of fact, they have tours from the planet to come, and you're not going to believe what these Earth people are doing now. Watch this. Watch, they're going to have a war.
I was once told we're the Disneyland of the solar system.
NASA tells us we have 4 giants, gas giants. Would be Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus. What they call gas giants are thriving planets with civilizations on them and all kinds of stuff going on, particularly Saturn. And Saturn has the rings around it that Norman Berggren wrote. The ringmakers of Saturn found the big spaceships orbiting inside the rings. All kinds of stuff is going on.
With Saturn, what are those rings made out of?
I don't know, but Saturn is probably one of the most important planets in our solar system. And Lou Baldwin, who I talk to all the time, who's written the books about space and UFOs, he said that if you were to look at the surface of Saturn from a planet a little ways away, he said all you have to do is to look at it for 5 seconds and you would faint for about a day. It would be so overwhelming that you would literally faint.
Because of structures or because of the
He
races?
does not elaborate. He said what you see
Overwhelming.
would be overwhelming, that you would lose consciousness.
I had read some papers classified that said that there is a portal there on the poles that the ETs used to come in and out of, and that it's a very popular spot in our solar system, I'll say.
We have portals all over Earth, but they change position all the time.
And that's due to what I believe is the axis and also the gravity of all the other planets and the sun. Is that correct?
I don't know. We know that Perry Spalter, who wrote The Gravitational Force of the Sun, debunking Newton's second law of gravitation, she says that the quantity and density of planets have nothing to do with the gravitational force. Now, Bob Lazar told us that gravity is made up of 2 waves, gravity A and gravity B. Gravity A, it works on an atomic scale, and it's the thing that holds atoms together in the nucleus. And gravity B is the gravity that holds us on Earth, and the Earth in orbit around the sun, and the moon in orbit around the Earth. The gravitational A wave is instantaneous throughout the universe. And the way that came up is apparently our government was trying to talk to somebody who was many hundreds of light years away, and there was some message that came back instantly, and either Bob or somebody asked, how was that possible? And they said they use a gravity phone, because the gravity phone is instantaneous, the wave is instantaneous. So if you could hook a telephone up to it, you could talk to somebody who was billions of light years away instantly. And that's because the gravity A is instantaneous. Since Venus is the closest to Earth, they have tried to make us think, oh, it's way too hot for anybody to live on Venus, which is nonsense. You remember the Russians had sent up the Venera series, and 800 degrees centigrade at the surface of Venus. They didn't tell us what the parachutes were made of.
How would you even get it down there?
Yeah, how would you even get it down there? All that's nonsense. There's a civilization up on Venus. There's several on Mars. All of them have. Uranus has civilizations, and the people are in huge round containers that contain housing, and they're like 50 miles tall, several miles in diameter, and they orbit Uranus. Anyway, Venus is a really nice place to live, as are most of the...
How's that atmosphere there?
Same as ours. And apparently they visited us several times. If you've read any of the Adamski books, they look like just,
They look like what?
Us.
Yeah, like us, right.
Us. There's some kind of rule that you're not supposed to mess with Earth people or tell them anything.
Right.
So I don't know how that's supposed to work. So that's all I know about Venus.
How about Mercury?
Mercury, supposed to be hot enough to melt lead. The basic misunderstanding that we all are infused with by NASA is the sun is hot. It's not hot. It may look hot, but it doesn't broadcast any heat. You'll remember when the first astronauts went up, that they made a great point of saying that they had to rotate the vehicles, the modules, to keep from burning up. So that it didn't get to... Actually, there is no heat coming from the sun, so you'll notice that nobody had to rotate. The International Space Station doesn't have to rotate because there's no heat from the sun. What there is coming from the sun is an electromagnetic wave, and this wave is changed from... it goes through our atmosphere, and our atmosphere changes the temperature of the atmosphere inside the Earth. So Mercury is supposed to be hot enough to melt lead. No, it's about the same temperature as here, because their atmosphere modifies the electromagnetic wave that comes out of the sun. With Pluto, we're told it's cold enough to freeze an Eskimo. It's not. It's the same temperature as here, because it modifies the electromagnetic wave to create the proper temperature on the planet. And it's the same with all the planets.
And they have to have this atmosphere, of course, for it to be like that.
Right.
Let's go to Mars. I mean, a lot going on there.
Yep. Mars has civilization, which is divided by two factions that have been fighting for hundreds of years, and that fight is still going on. That's why we're not allowed to land anything there, and if we try to send up anything there, they shoot it down, and there's, records all the way back for, 40 or 50 years of stuff that we've tried to send there. The original rover series, to start out with the original Viking photos,
right.
Where the two guys, I think DiPietro and another guy, found those two pictures of the Cydonia region. And they showed the pyramids and the face on Mars. And when Bob Lazar worked at S4, he was shown a briefing that had a close-up photo of the pyramids that showed doors, windows, balconies, everything. That was all an apartment building, which is shaped in a pyramid. So we wanted to know where that photo came from. So he and I had to drive down to LA to pick up his jet car, and we picked up his jet car, then drove over to Jet Propulsion Laboratories in Pasadena.
JPL, yeah.
Just like we owned the place. Parked in visitor parking and took up the whole space with my truck and his 20-foot jet car. Walked up in there and asked to see Bob Nathan, who was head of Viking Imaging. And it was just like everything was planned. They said, oh yeah, just a second. And they ushered us up to Bob Nathan's office.
Wow.
And Bob and I sit there and start talking with him. And We told them that, we were aware of the two photos that the two guys had found, that everybody sees the pyramids. But Bob had worked at a classified base where he had seen pictures of a pyramid in Cydonia that was very detailed and showed doors and windows and balconies and all that type of stuff. And we said, were those in the original Viking series of photographs? Did we miss it, or did the two guys miss it? He said, no. He said, I don't know exactly where those came from. So we said, you're head of Viking imaging. It would seem that you would have that kind of information. When he said they weren't in the original series, we asked him, did the orbiter camera, did it ever go into a lower orbit? And he said, yes, it did, but we didn't take any pictures. Of course, we had to laugh because that's exactly how security works, is you take the top guy who has contact with the public and you don't tell him what's going on. Even though he's the head of imaging, he doesn't know that they took pictures. So those pictures that Bob saw at S4 were taken when they went into the lower orbit.
So the two races there on Mars that have been fighting for a while.
Hundreds of years.
Are they the ones who destroyed Mars? Because Mars...
Yeah, there was
a huge...
large accident there, and I don't know how it happened.
Right.
We sent up the rover series. I just happened to be taking a remote viewing class with Angela Smith Davis, who's one of the leading remote viewers in the United States, and she had a class, and I had a week off, so I took the class. So the first day we show up happened to be the exact day, I think it was the rover landed. And they were showing the twin peaks in the very, very distant what was going on. And she says she was a little late coming into class, and she says the reason I was late is I was with my husband watching these photos, and he works up at Groom Lake, and he's in charge of those rovers and how they, taking care of how they move, back and forth and everything. And when he saw those pictures, he says, that's not Mars, that's out in Death Valley where we work. I know exactly where they are, So that tipped us off that the rovers wasn't going to Mars, never has been. And every picture we've seen of Mars is taken someplace on Earth. The guy that is in charge of distributing the motor, the Mars pictures, used to be Malin. Now, I'm not sure if Malin Space Systems still does it, but he was the original guy. Now, the reason he got to be in charge of that is he was once a very big Billy Myers proponent.
Oh.
And the only way to stop him was because he was so knowledgeable, and they couldn't say, oh, it's just some kook, They gave him a contract to vet the Mars photos, and that's how Malin Space Systems came into being. And that's how kind of the guy Malin got separated from promoting the Billy Myers photos.
Oh, I see. Got it.
The way they hide that stuff from the public is ingenious. They spend a lot of time figuring out how to keep the rank and file, you and me, from knowing what's going on or knowing what's really going on.
Yeah, the only way is to, like I always tell everybody, you got to go out and find out for yourself. And that's what you and Bob did. You went right to the source. Are these beings on Mars intelligent?
Absolutely, yeah.
And how far more advanced are they than we are, would you say?
Well, they can shoot down anything we put up there. So I imagine they're pretty far advanced. I don't know if there's as far advanced as the humans on the moon, but everything's more advanced than us.
Right. Is it habitable?
Yes, it has a breathable atmosphere, and it's not red like NASA would have us believe, and there's plenty of water.
Are there any Earth humans on Mars?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Can't verify that.
If we went there, we didn't go under our own power.
Right.
ET took us there.
All right, and let's jump to the next one. So,
before we jump to the next, I just want to make a statement here about disclosure. You and I talk about a lot of different things, and people want to know, when are they going to tell us? They're never going to tell us. And if they did, what would they tell us? You and I know more than they would ever tell on disclosure. A guy that, read most of his stuff that comes out, in the bookstore would know more than they'd ever tell us. So why would you want, the Pentagon to say, okay, we're going to have a disclosure here? What would they tell us? Nothing, nothing that we couldn't know.
But then again, you and I are sitting here talking about disclosure and informing people what's really going on and telling the truth. As far as the government, it's not going to be the government, that discloses. It's more going to be like the people, if anything.
You can learn far more on your own,
right,
than the government would ever tell you.
Exactly.
Watch this series. It's the closest you're going to get to disclosure in your lifetime.